So, for those of you that watched my latest video on my powder versus Goex versus Swiss, you might remember me saying something like this. Those are filthy compared to Swiss and even Goex. After I posted that video, I had a subscriber write me and say, man, that's really dirty. What kind of willow, if you don't mind me asking, are you using? And I said, oh, I'm using this stuff called desert willow. It's all over every riverbed or wash around here. And he writes me back and he says, you know, I seem to remember something about desert willow not actually being willow. And I thought, oh, I'll have to look into that. Now, before I even had a chance to look into it, literally in a couple of minutes, he writes me back and he says, yep, I just checked. Desert willow is not a willow. A willow is a salix tree or plant, and desert willow is however you pronounce that word. So, I'm a dumb. That is not technically willow. It's more closely related to a creosote bush. Now, good news is it makes really powerful black powder. The bad news is it's really, really dirty. So, I did a little bit more homework and I got a hold of some real, actual willow. This is Pacific willow and it's salix, that word. And we made some charcoal out of it. And funny enough, it actually grows right next to the desert willow bush in the particular riverbed that I like to go get my stuff from.
What an idiot.
So, apologies for the last one. That was not true willow. My fault, my mistake. So we're going to run this test again. Now, we're going to use the real Pacific willow. We're going to use the Eastern Red Cedar stuff that we've used for a long time. And I also have some powder made up with some Alder buckthorn charcoal that I got from Ben Hoffman from Hoffman Reproductions. So Ben, if you see this, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And we're going to run some tests with that. So all of these powders have been dry milled for 10 hours, compressed, granulated, and graphite coated. And just like last time, we're going to use the .45 caliber Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle with a .440 round ball, a 20 thousandths patch, and we're using 50 grains of each powder, and each shot is primed and charged with the same powder. First up is the Eastern Red Cedar.
Adapter, right?
1611, Derek.
And that's
Eastern Red Cedar.
Eastern Red Cedar.
I had a really bad hang fire, but I did just get done cleaning it. So.
Smacked it.
1669.
Man, your patch dropped right there in front of it, didn't it?
1683. Next up is the Pacific willow.
I hate that. I hate that sound.
1643.
These have more of a drop to the where the Lancaster disappointing. I didn't hear it.
1689. 1650. Next is Goex.
That snake, you'll come around.
Oh, I did hit it.
1697. 1679.
Barely above the top of all that.
Smacked it. Where you at?
1607. Next up is Swiss.
Capping off.
A nice solid hit.
1787.
What was that?
Swiss.
Swiss. Oh, that was a solid hit.
1759.
Hard smack. Yeah.
1803.
Wow.
And last but certainly not least, the Alder buckthorn.
Okay, you shoot the branch.
1800.
With what powder was that? No.
1767 or
nice.
61.
Smacked it.
1760. So here's the breakdown with all of the powders. Between the Eastern Red Cedar and the Willow and the Goex, they're all practically the same, and even the fouling is about the same. I had one wimpy shot with Goex at 1607, but I also had one wimpy shot with the Cedar at 1611, and so I ran it. But you look at the averages between those three, and they are all right there with Goex. But the cool thing is over here on the far right, if you look at the Alder buckthorn compared to Swiss, you can see that the velocities are practically the same as Swiss, and even with a tighter spread. So that's pretty cool, because Alder buckthorn is what Swiss claims they use. Now, again, there's always a catch, and I don't know how Swiss does it, but their stuff burns cleaner. Now, I've tried different ratios, you know, I've tried all different kinds of stuff to get it to burn cleaner, and no matter what I do, it still doesn't burn as clean. So here are the patches: top left, Eastern Red Cedar, Willow, and Goex, and then on the bottom we have Swiss. So you can see from the top ones there are all about the same. I guess if you look really hard and zoom in, you might say that Willow is a little bit dirtier, but I didn't really notice it when I was shooting and swabbing between shots. They all look about the same. Of course, the patches on the bottom are Swiss, and everyone loves Swiss for two reasons. One, it's powerful, and two, it's very clean. Now here is the Alder buckthorn patches next to the Swiss patches, and as you can see, they're still pretty dirty. Not nearly as dirty as my wannabe Willow powder, but certainly not nearly as clean as Swiss. So what I'm going to start working on now is some way to get less fouling in my black powder, because even though I'm always experimenting with different ratios and I'm using the same charcoal that Swiss uses, I still don't know how those guys get it that clean. So I got a few things to try. We're going to try refining some charcoal with a couple of different things, which from what I've read can be good or bad. So we'll see how it goes. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, as usual, folks, if you thought this video didn't suck, do me a favor and hit the like button and consider subscribing. And if you did think it sucked, well, then go make your own video.